welcome to NSN Connect from National Skills Network. In this series on reigniting the skilling landscape in India, in the previous episodes, we have discussed many aspects of the skilling landscape that includes education, employability, employment, but we have left out entrepreneurship. So in this episode, we are going to look at entrepreneurship and connect it with skills. Often we wonder, is self-employment the same as entrepreneurship? Is there a connection between business and entrepreneurship? Are they the same or are they different? So there are a lot of points like this when we go deeper into entrepreneurship and try to understand the entrepreneurial landscape in India, mostly with regard to the informal sector and the small and medium entrepreneurs. So in this conversation with Rajesh A R, CEO, LabourNet, we are going to look at few more important aspects of promoting entrepreneurship, making it aspirational and trying to convey the real sense of being entrepreneurial. It's not just about funding, right? So let's go ahead and learn more as we go deeper into entrepreneurship and connect it with skills and education and training. We are talking about work, we are talking about jobs, we are talking about improving people's livelihoods through better salaries and giving them decent work, wages. So these are some of the things which are very, very important in India if you're talking about skilling. But there's another important aspect of skilling, which I think the ministry itself is saying by the way it is named, called Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. How many people do you think are able to establish this connect between skills and entrepreneurship?
If you just step back, out of the 500 to 500 million people who's in the working population, let's take 200. Let's take for 80% of them as informal, which leads to a 400 million. And in that 400 million, statistics says that 50% of them, that is in the range of 200 million people, are self-employed.
Okay.
And it is not that they are self-employed by choice, it is because of the circumstances they are in. They may not have the skill sets of being an entrepreneur or a self-employed person. They may not have the capital for running it as a self-entrepreneur. They may not have the education. They may not have the access to the information on the market, but still circumstances have forced them, due to lack of opportunities, to be a self-employed. And this again, when you correlate to 40% of the country is, or 30 to 40% of the country is below the poverty line, these statistics don't match in terms of why, it doesn't match in the sense of these people are forced to be a self-employed or an entrepreneur. If you need to pull these people, basically most of them in the farms, to jobs which is into non-farms, skilling plays a critical role. So either we look at this set of environment, a set of people, to move them to daily, monthly wage workers. That is, thanks if urbanization happen, more and more cities are getting, or suburbs are getting made, economic hubs are being made. A lot of farm people in the farms will go into non-farms kind of a job on a monthly or a weekly or a wage kind of a thing. We have found security guards, right? A huge migration of people which is happening from northeast and western, eastern part of the country to these kind of a job. The second set of activities which needs to happen again through skilling and capacity building, access of credit, etc., is to move these small entrepreneurs, self-employed people, to act as a bigger entrepreneur. That is successful, how to make them successful as an entrepreneur, where there are multiple things required, right? You need access to skills, which is primary. You need access to market information. You need to figure it out how to build capacity, what capacity to be built, and access to credit. And when I say credit, technology and everything, I'm assuming it is all through the digital platform. So there is access. So from being a very small, curtailed person, entrepreneur, to making that small enterprise scalable, to cater to a large set of audience, skilling only can enable them. And India today needs these large corporates. I think we have 40 to 50 million such enterprises today, which has not seen the growth. I mean, there may be less than 15 or 18 people, which cannot create the scale what we are talking about.
Yeah, in addition to the element of scaling up and growing, I think one very basic thing also we need to look at. I've always had this doubt in my mind because now that I have, I have my own startup and I'm able to sustain it for this long a time. I know what I go through every day as an entrepreneur, but there is something like entrepreneurship and business. Okay, I see this as two different things, which I have to keep balancing every day. But there are people, initially when I had started, just in 2 months, they were asking me things like, so are you making profits? I said, this is just third month and I don't even know what I'm going to do. So the common perception of people is the moment you say you're starting up, people think you're there for money, you've started, making profits. That means there isn't much education about entrepreneurship. This is something which I would like to share with you. And the second and also important is, I think, what is the difference between entrepreneurship and a business? Okay, let me tell you again. Would you call them entrepreneurs? First of all, is my question. There are a whole lot of people who buy stuff, who sell stuff for a margin, for a profit. It could be the neighborhood lady who brings saris from her native place and sells them and makes some money to supplement her husband's income. Or it could be a lot of kirana stores that we have in India in every lane. They also do business. There is a slight confusion between this kind of business and entrepreneurship. And I need to also connect it with the larger picture. The common understanding about entrepreneurship and startups in India, I think, is very formal and very limited.
I think the difference is entrepreneurs in the formal environment and entrepreneurs in the informal environment. Okay, because at the end of the day, both that business or an entrepreneur, both of them are entrepreneurs or both of them are businesses.
Okay.
So there is so when we look at, and today the numbers which we just rattled out, right, in terms of in the formal sector, they become the torch bearers, but directly employing people into the formal sector jobs is minimal compared. I mean, most of the jobs gets created in the MSME and in the lower level of it, which is more informal. Okay, they may not be bound by a lot of employment contracts and other things, but as you go into the formal employment, a lot of those employment contracts and things gets added. So let's spend some time on the 40 to 50 million entrepreneurs, which is in this side of table, which is more informal. And I'm assuming that the words used of kirana shop or a sari trader, all of them fall into that kind of an entrepreneurship. It is very, very critical to have role models like Falguni and other set of people, because he or she in this particular informal sector needs to get formalized. And why do we need to get formalized? Again, going back to the for access of credit, access of technology, accessing market, etc. So it is very important to formalize. And if you just step back, whatever is happening in this country in the last 4-5 years, thanks to GST, thanks to UPI, that is payment gateways, which is happening, thanks to the formalization in terms of labor laws being more and more made transparent, you're seeing quite a bit of people in the unorganized sector becoming more and more formalized. Okay, so a value chain which has been created by the formal entrepreneur needs to now get complied by the informal sector entrepreneur. Okay, and all these things are forced, right? It is like thanks to COVID, like you need to have digital payment gateway. So that means you have data coming in from there. Thanks to GST, a lot of invoices has to be raised, or in terms of and tax related activities, in terms of you have to move more and more technology enabled or things around. So it is becoming more and more formalized. And once you have this kind of digital footprint, you are able to access capital for you to grow.
one more aspect which I think we need to look at is the MSME, the micro and very small entrepreneurs, and also look at the rural entrepreneurship. I remember having a discussion with you a few years ago on the rural entrepreneurship part of it. There are a lot of rural based entrepreneurs who could be agri based, or like for instance, we talk about these days in Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand, there are a lot of initiatives supported by majors like ITC, where they procure, let's say, custard apples or jackfruits or whatever, package and sell in the supermarkets from where we urban city dwellers go and purchase. Okay, so there are many innovative things happening like this. The new chains are being formed. But one thing I hear, we also get comments when we publish about these aspects, is it's not easy to get a loan. It's not easy to get the support that the government is giving, whether it's a Startup India, Stand Up India, whatever kind of missions government is talking about, or Make in India. There are so many of these terms and terminologies which are all over the place. But in the end, at the bottom, in real time, what happens? How does one really go through this process? Can you tell us how we can resolve this issue?
So, life has changed post-COVID. Okay. It is the era of platforms. When we are talking about platforms, what it gives as a biggest positive is these set of traders or the small agri farmers, which you just spoke right now, they were forced into that particular trade because of the circumstances we spoke before. Now, these kind of platforms bring in the skill sets which they can acquire, call it digital learning, e-learning, hybrid learning, different forms, to equip themselves well. That means they can build capacity. They have information on the price or for the products which others can buy. You said about supermarkets and other things. That is what is bringing in, which means they have a better connect to the market. They have now, when you have the alignment of these two, and with a lot of proliferation of fintech kind of companies, you are able to also get access to credit. In terms of if you're able to put your GSTs and your PAN and the TAN, which is again a skill building and capacity, and through platforms it enables wherever you are able to now improve the productivity. So for any new age any entrepreneur, it is critical for that particular person to embrace on digital platform of his or her choice. Okay, and then look at how to improve productivity, how to improve my capacity, how to improve my connect to wages or connect to the markets, and how to improve where I can acquire more skills. Today, we are seeing an onset of these changes which is made available to the entrepreneur. And that will take him to the transitions which we spoke about.
Yeah. Look at the larger picture of entrepreneurship in India. What we see is there are a lot of barriers. I would say the social barrier, or barriers which start right from the family onwards, because I would not want to repeat, but then as we all know, we are mostly a middle class kind of an economy in India, and then we have parents who don't encourage their children to take this kind of risk. So if you think of entrepreneurship, first thing comes to the mind is risk, financial risk. Okay, so like that, there are a few things associated. And we also come across now very encouraging initiatives, like say the government of Delhi has included entrepreneurship as a part of the curriculum to catch them young and influence their minds to become job creators. So where are we in this larger scenario? There are so many barriers to break. And there are a lot of young people who would want to have their own startups at a younger age. How do we go ahead this, and how do we address these barriers?
I think what you mentioned about bringing in an entrepreneurship skilling or entrepreneurship training or entrepreneurship mindset into school children is a first basic step. Saying that this is not bad, there is a future being an entrepreneur, and identifying them young, identifying them early, and nurturing them And we have seen how NSQF in schools has been in now a bigger one, at least vocational training in the schools has been one. How can we get entrepreneurship kind of a training? Can we identify those people, create that incubation labs way ahead, so that you are able to nurture their curiosity, their business acumen, their financial acumen, financial literacy, everything into the few things. That's a point one. Second, why do parents discourage kids to be an entrepreneur? And you brought it right? It is a financial risk. Forget the social side of the elements and other things, which is also important. I'm just bringing to the point which you spoke about, financial risk. The access to capital to be an entrepreneur today comes at an interest cost which is ranging from 26% to 32% to those kind of people. Okay, which actually makes their business plan more and more unviable. Okay, so when you raise a capital, or when you have an access to capital from sahukars of the world at that kind of a rate, you need to have a business model, or you need to have a model which is going to give you much better yield, right? Otherwise, they will not take home anything. I mean, they will not earn anything. It will be going as interest to the sahukars of the world. This is how do we sort this point out? And this is very critical to look at into the world of blended capital. Okay, a blended capital is if these are small enterprises which is actually solving a problem of livelihood or clean energy or environment, whichever the areas which is there, and most of the rural kind of a thing is solving a particular problem of to reach there. How do we bring in low-cost capital and reimburse or reduce this cost of interest to these set of people will actually mitigate a lot of this financial risk which we are talking? How can we bring in CSR how can we bring in credit guarantee schemes? How can we bring in quite a bit of elements together? It is not that one idea will solve the problem, but 4 or 5, 6 ideas, so that the financial risk element, when I say financial risk, at an interest rate kind of an element, is hugely subsidized to make this business successful. And the moment 1 or 2 business is successful in a particular pin code or in a particular rural area, you will find the herd mentality. The role models gets created, and then you will find over a period of time the parental and the societal support emerging.
Yeah, I think yes. And also I think this will help us in taking away the notion that failing as an entrepreneur is not bad. Okay, failing may not be the right word, but then I think that's a very big social stigma attached to entrepreneurship about failures. Okay, I started, I couldn't do well, and then I failed. But then also there are larger stories to this, because even very established entrepreneurs could not face a failure, they couldn't take it in the right way. So I guess there are psychological, social, many angles to it. Perhaps this also calls for another deeper discussion with you, maybe some other time. So till then, I think let's close this talk on entrepreneurship and connecting it with skilling.
Yeah, as I sign off, I think again, the word failure which you spoke about, I would like to view it as pre-COVID and post-COVID.
Okay.
The platforms which has come in right now will significantly reduce the rate of failure. Like, for example, a taxi driver today has more avenues because of an Ola, Uber, and growing e-commerce kind of a thing to earn better. Earlier, he didn't have that kind of element to, like, we went back in capacity, access to money, etc. So I think, and if he doesn't have skills to acquire those skills, previously he didn't have that avenue to acquire in his linguistic or in his mother tongue kind of area. So I think this is an era to take risks and see the success in the coming days.
Yes, definitely. Looking at the need for lots of job creators in India, we have just discussed that entrepreneurship is one of the solutions or one of the ways to go to encourage people to start on their own, create small businesses, and also create jobs. Because we know India needs jobs, and there are so many young people who need to be employed. Now, in this backdrop, you have given us many points already, about how entrepreneurship can be promoted, how it should be perceived, and other aspects. But for all those people who want to really go back and implement few of these ideas, I think they need solid action points or action items. So Rajesh, what do you think are, let's say, 3 important action items in this domain which we can try out ourselves?
So I think let's just divide entrepreneurship into 2 parts. Okay, one is the formal sector entrepreneurship, and second is the informal sector entrepreneurship. In the formal sector entrepreneurship, it's a changing reality with a lot of funds coming in from venture capitalists, angel investors, etc., and the glamour which is being associated with the entrepreneurships. A lot of such startups are getting funded, and a lot of colleges have set up their incubation centers, which means the entrepreneurial idea is getting funded, which is a welcome sign, and that's one big change, and the students should leverage on that. The second element is in the informal sector entrepreneurship. There, what we call it as cooperatives, like how do we create a grouping of like-minded people to create a cooperative, a community-based entrepreneurship, where they can come together and then go into a particular bank or go into where they can be provided with loans, the financial support, the market linkages, etc., and then leverage the growth from there on. It's a power of many, right, than to a power of one. That's very important to look at from a cluster or a grouping of entrepreneurs together, create a collaborative community, and then move on. That's the second from an informal sector part of it. Now, the third is, how do we nurture entrepreneurship? I mean, when we say nurture entrepreneurship, we should move away from this mindset of monthly wages. And that can really happen at schools, government schools, right from 6th standard, catch them young, bring in the entrepreneurial education, then restricting to some PG courses and other elements, bring them the entrepreneurial experience at the school, change the mindset. What kind of a financial risk you can take, what kind of a social risk we can take, bring that elements to the school level education, and you will see wonders which is going to unfold from there.
Yeah, I guess these points are, very relevant, like you said, and so timely, because in India now there is a huge promotion of entrepreneurship, even at the state level. A lot of state governments and they're all tying it up with skill development and trying to see how both can be, together in terms of helping people create jobs as they get skilled. So thank you, Rajesh, for sharing these points. I'm sure our audience are going to really take it forward and try it out and understand entrepreneurship in a very different way, that there are so many aspects to it, and not just seeking funding or getting ready with a business plan and things like that. So thanks again. When you look back at the 3 action points shared by Rajesh, what is it that comes to your mind, and how would you prioritize these action points? It would be nice to know more from you about this. Entrepreneurship promotion and education is definitely on the agenda for many schools, colleges, governments, and also other organizations. So it's high time that we look deeper into entrepreneurship, and do share with us your experience in this domain in case you are connected with entrepreneurship promotion, or you are yourself an entrepreneur, or you are trying to groom and mentor entrepreneurs. It would be nice to hear from you. And also about the discussion that we just had with Rajesh, please share your comments, your views, your suggestions, so that we can take it forward and make it more enriching and useful. And with this episode, we come to the end of this series of Reigniting the Skilling Landscape in India with Rajesh A R. I look forward to be with you in the coming episodes of the next series of Reigniting the Skilling Landscape in India, and we'll be sharing more details soon. Thank you so much for being with us throughout this entire series of 8 episodes. Thanks again, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon if you haven't done so earlier. It would be nice to be in touch with you and also be connected. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.